I'm just going to go ahead and skip the first half hour of the movie because literally nothing interesting happens. And since the entire premise is based on the last two acts, it makes that first half hour painfully predictable. You have to fight the urge to not fast forward through it. But for story context, Millie Bobby Brown plays a lady named Elodie, who's from a relatively poor house. She has a sister, father, and stepmother, and the story begins with her father deciding to sell her off to a rich royal family. This single plot point infects the entire first act, because that's extremely suspicious. However, our main character Elodie, who's supposed to be a sharp and witty character, never questions this. That would be like the Lannisters wanting to combine their house with some random unheard of family. It flat out wouldn't make sense, and anyone with a brain would reasonably question that and think something malicious might be at play. The reason why this royal family is doing this is because one of their ancestors murdered 3 baby dragons, and in return for mercy, for every generation, this family has to offer up 3 of their daughters. However, they subvert that punishment by selecting poor houses, marrying them for a day, combining their royal blood, and sacrificing them. So that's basically all you need to know from the first third of the movie. Right away at the start of the second act, Elodie gets yeeted down a deep hole and luckily survives. Some branches technically break her fall, but she returns into a free fall state, hits a single large branch, and then slams into the floor. So, yeah, that's a pretty big ask for the audience in having them buy the fact that she'd survive this. Let alone not sustaining any injuries besides one single scratch on her face, and a minor head injury that she walks off minutes later. Like, at the very least, her body would be shredded from all the branches that quote-unquote broke her fall, or let alone broken bones. But I guess there was a 20-foot crash pad under the landing zone graciously set up by the dragon. Elodie wakes up with a headache induced by an inconvenient 200-foot fall, and starts screaming for help. Before this, the Queen Mother gave a long monologue about a past tradition of sacrificing daughters to a beast. So if I were in Elodie's position, I'd probably assume that that tale has some merit. But this smart character doesn't think about that for a second and wakes up the dragon by screaming. She eventually runs into the dragon, and throughout the movie, there's going to be this aspect of the dragon playing with its food. Like the dragon talking to Elodie or trying to scare her and then trying to kill her. This essentially creates an inconsistent motivation for the dragon. In some instances, the dragon tries to kill her, while in others, the dragon will just kind of let Elodie go. So the writers use this aspect as a form of plot armor for Elodie. In her first encounter with the dragon, she narrowly escapes and her leg gets burned, which increases her screaming by 1000%. Also, this will be a returning motif of stupidity, in which Elodie screams and grunts constantly, which always alerts the dragon to her location. You'd think this intelligent character would know that staying quiet and remaining hidden from the dragon would be integral, but that's not a thought that ever graces her mind. During this scene, Elodie takes out this object from her wardrobe that resembles a knife, but it's too dull. So to get around this, Elodie grinds it on a rock 3 times to sharpen it, which apparently turns it into a knife, and she uses it to modify her clothing. From here, Elodie goes down a narrow path where she gets stuck and again falls about 10 feet onto another straight up rocky surface. So miraculously, her bones are made up of metal to not sustain any injuries. After the fall, this light source she created runs out, and coincidentally, there happens to be a bunch of glow-in-the-dark slugs lighting up the way to go. I'll just accept this because realistically, she'd probably just die from it being pitch black, so her finding a fantasy-based light source is fine. However, the way to get over there has a massive chasm in the way. So how does she overcome this? She deadass jumps this entire distance and stabs her now knife into a mossy part of the rock. Which, there's just a lot of things here that so conveniently happen to keep her alive, like her knife actually being sharp enough to impact the surface and hold her body weight, there being mossy veins to begin with, and her wardrobe getting caught on a rock. But whatever. She gets across and picks up this blue glowing slug with her hand that has a big cut on it. I don't know about you guys, but if I had a huge cut on my hand, I'd be very cautious about what I touched with it as to not get an infection. Also, before this, she even picks up this dying bat with that hand. So obviously picking up a bright blue slug could be very dangerous because it could be poisonous. But who cares about infections? That only applies to Khal Drogo. So instead of succumbing to infections like a wimp, Elodie makes a makeshift lantern out of slugs, which is a good idea, and then finds an icy water source. And again, she doesn't care about infections as she submerges her hand into dirty water. Although, Arya Stark has proven that disease-filled water doesn't contaminate your wounds. So Elodie is definitely A-okay. She starts to drink from the dripping water until the dragon shows up and melts the ice. I do find it kind of funny that Elodie takes such a long time to notice because it literally starts to rain profusely on her, along with the entire cave becoming illuminated. Thankfully, she finally notices and escapes to the secluded section of the cave, where past wives have made it before. Now, this is a little hard to buy given how Elodie went down a specific path, along with each section having extremely difficult obstacles to overcome. However, we don't really know how long these sacrifices have been going on, so I guess this is plausible. Since this is a safe area, Elodie has a nap and she has a dream where she somehow is able to see all of these past victims in the cave where she currently is. One of these girls even conveys some critical information in which everything about the ceremony is a lie. So Elodie getting these dreams is never explained, and I guess Elodie just casually has wicked transcendental dream powers. One of the girls even made a map of the entire cave system, which is convenient to say the least, and they have a way out marked on it. However, later on in the film, it's revealed that this quote-unquote way out is actually just a dead end. So for this person to have made this map, why would they come all the way back from this way out and mark it on the map as an exit when it's not? Whatever, so Elodie has to climb out of this crystal climbing path, where she luckily doesn't puncture her feet a single time. A couple shenanigans happen, but after getting to the top, she finds the person who climbed up here and met their fiery demise from the dragon. Although, I have no idea why they take the time to write this down and allow themselves to die instead of climbing back down. So Elodie meets the same predicament, and the dragon is about to kill her. Miraculously though, her father shows up and starts shouting, so the dragon leaves Elodie. Despite the dragon literally being like 1 second away from roasting her alive, so I don't know why it didn't simply kill her and then go and deal with the intruders. So after that plot armor fiasco, Elodie's father, Bayford, hires some people to rescue his daughter. This goes exactly as you would imagine, and everyone but Bayford gets instantly slaughtered. This pretty much reminds me of Game of Thrones, where the whites instantly decimate the extras, but when it comes time for the main characters, they turn into incompetent clowns. So the dragon questions Bayford, and Elodie manages to find her way here, and even sneaks up right next to them. Bayford admits that he gave Elodie away for money, but he had a change of heart. Which this is literally only happening to give Elodie a plausible way out by her using the rope they used to get into the cavern. This story beat would make much more sense if Bayford intentionally married off his daughter to this royal family to cheat them by taking the gold with an additional plan to rescue his daughter. He would still obviously be flawed for this, but it would be more logical to write his character in this way to accomplish this plot beat, instead of him changing his mind 1 day later as if he was an idiot who didn't understand the notion of sacrificing his own daughter he loved for money, along with him even assuming that she survived for an entire day. Also, this entire plot point betrays the reversal of the film trope the movie is playing on, which is a damsel in distress. This character is supposed to get out of this situation on her own, but she's technically saved by a man. I just find it hilarious that the writer fails on this front. So now there's a free way out of this dungeon. The dragon impales Bayford and Elodie screams. I don't think I've ever facepalmed so hard in my life while watching a movie. Elodie is like 15 feet away from the dragon, and she's so dumb to the point that she allows herself to scream? Then it's equally insane that the dragon isn't able to immediately pinpoint her location. The dragon then starts looking for her around this column, and right before it finds her, one of the people accompanying Bayford conveniently makes a loud noise that draws the dragon away. Wow, that's great timing. During this distraction, Elodie uses the rope to start climbing out, but like a complete dumbass, she starts grunting loudly, which alerts the dragon to her location.
Huh?
The dragon kills this poor NPC since he didn't have plot armor like Elodie when she was in the cave about to die, and then the dragon rushes Elodie. By complete dumb luck, the dragon somehow misses Elodie, who is moving like a snail, and is able to fully escape. Elodie takes one of the horses and rides off, but the dragon comes out of the mountain, so she needs to hide. However, this doesn't make sense at all because the dragon is in this high position where it should see Elodie, but a few shots later, it teleports closer to the ground, allowing Elodie to escape without being in view of the dragon. So the creators essentially manipulate where the dragon is in space because this plot point is completely devoid of logic. Some time passes, and during this period, the dragon throws a hissy fit, which spurs the Queen Mother to take Elodie's sister Gloria to replace her in the sacrifice. Also during this scene, they stab their stepmother in the gut region. Elodie wakes up from her nap and goes on a stroll, and randomly runs into her stepmother, which this is insanely absurd for multiple reasons. Firstly, the stepmother finds Elodie as if she has a GPS tracker in her skull or something. It's so utterly convenient that they find each other here. Not to mention that the royal family would most likely send out trackers to look for Elodie, given that she escaped. However, that doesn't seem to be the case for whatever reason. If Ramsay was on the case, she would have been recaptured in like an hour. Then the writers are completely ignoring the fact that the stepmother was stabbed in the guts, but she somehow has the energy to ride all the way up the mountain? This point in the story of her getting stabbed adds practically nothing and only makes it dumber. Also, the only reason this absolutely implausible event happens is because the story fundamentally wouldn't work. Someone needs to relay the information that Gloria was kidnapped so that Elodie can save her. So yep, that's the third act of the movie. Elodie solos the dragon as if this is Elden Ring. I also find it funny that the stepmother wants Elodie to go back there, and she actually thinks she has a chance. Any caring family member in this position would desperately try to convince them to not do that. So Elodie goes back into the cave and prepares for her upcoming rescue, as if she's Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator. Also, the dragon is holding Gloria hostage and awaits Elodie to rescue her. The problem with this plan is that Elodie would realistically be far gone and would have left the story. So the dragon thinking Elodie would somehow hear about this and also want to come back to save her sister is ridiculous. It's essentially a wild Hail Mary that somehow works. Elodie sets up a contraption that makes a loud noise to lure the dragon away, and she tries to save her sister, but she's too injured to escape. When the dragon comes back, Elodie manages to sneak up on the dragon, but it immediately doesn't make sense. The dragon puts its face right into Elodie's sword to make it seem like she poses a threat, and we're also ignoring the fact that the dragon has a tail. Like, let me remind you of the moment where the dragon easily captured Elodie's father by ensnaring him in its tail. But nope, the tail doesn't exist here. Elodie and the dragon talk briefly, and she sets up the notion that the dragon is being manipulated by the royal family. However, Elodie withholds an integral piece of information that would instantly prove her case, which is the knife cut on her hand that the prince mixed his royal blood into. But if she did that, that means we wouldn't get all this totally fun action, so the writer makes it to where Elodie doesn't disclose this yet. The dragon then breathes fire on Elodie and she falls off the cliff into a pool of water, which right away you'd assume she'd probably be dead, let alone the massive coincidence that there happened to be water under the cliff. But given that she's survived falls like that already, I would have just accepted that at this point. Before shaking off her stylish new third-degree burns, Elodie drinks a plot armor potion and runs into the open, to which the dragon immediately traps her in its claws and decides to not instantly kill her. Good thing she had that potion of plot armor or she'd be screwed. Instead, the dragon opts to torture her as if she hasn't been through enough already by impaling her side with its nail. Now, you'd think this would also be a game over for Elodie, and she'd probably die of blood loss from this massive gaping hole in the side of her torso, but don't worry, she's also a bloodbender and has the passive ability of stopping all of her bleeding. While in this position, Elodie stabs out the eye of the dragon, and instead of the dragon immediately torching her, it opts to rush Elodie, which allows her to get a critical blow on the dragon. In return, the dragon grabs Elodie and crushes her like a grape, which is the end of the movie. Sorry, that's not what happens, even though this dragon has crushed these other random people in mere seconds. When it comes to this plot armored up girl boss with a skeleton made of vibranium, the dragon for whatever reason doesn't want to kill her, even though that's what the dragon desperately wants. So Elodie stabs the dragon's hand and it releases her. After this, the dragon clearly has an opportunity to let her the fuck up, since she isn't moving, but the dragon has to pout about its injuries. After they exchange a few lines, Elodie notices that the base of one of these pillars is curved and comes up with the idea to have the dragon spew fire on itself. This is honestly one of the only clever moments, although I always thought dragons in general were kind of fire resistant, but the writer disagrees with me and the dragon KOs itself. And now, after all of this, Elodie decides to finally show the dragon the proof that it's been getting manipulated for generations. Wow, it would have been great to start with that, but okay. It's also pretty crazy that no other girls in these centuries of sacrifices ever tried to talk to this intelligent creature. The dragon then asks for death, but Elodie decides to repair the dragon with a bunch of glowing slugs. As a side note, I find it ridiculous that these slugs were able to repair the dragon's entire right eye. There's no way that they can just fabricate new alien-like organs that are foreign to their species. But that's minimal all things considered, and Elodie teleports into the castle during a wedding ceremony. You'd think there would be guards guarding the way into the castle, but apparently, this wanted fugitive was able to waltz all the way through the castle without being detained. So Elodie girl bosses it up even though there are guards in the background, and the Queen Mother doesn't ask them to arrest her for whatever idiotic reason. Then the dragon shows up right on cue at the end of Elodie's monologue, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a rewrite where initially Elodie flies in on the dragon, and Netflix thought that would be too expensive. So they just had her walk into the ceremony despite it being completely brain dead. The dragon then torches everyone and burns down the castle. Luckily, Elodie's teleportation ability was off cooldown, so she was able to get out of the castle without being burned. Then the creators copy Game of Thrones with this shot, in which the dragon envelops Elodie in the frame, but it establishes the same message in which Elodie is symbolically being compared to a dragon. What a badass. So yeah, that's basically the end, and now this dragon, despite having an utter hatred for humans for its entire life, has bonded to a human. Elodie may as well be Daenerys Targaryen. The movie was just a complete train wreck, and it didn't surprise me when I found out that it was written by the same writer who wrote Fast X. Thank you for watching, and my Letterboxd, Patron, and Discord links are in the description. Thank you so much to my top patron, Logan Farmer.